What would you do if a stranger's kid attacked your service dog on a plane, and their mom blamed you for it? I'm a combat veteran. I've seen war. But I wasn't ready for what this Karen did next. This isn't just a story. This is payback, and you're going to want to watch until the very end. She bit him. The kid actually bit my service dog on a plane mid-flight, and no one, not even the flight attendants, stepped in fast enough to stop her. 1 second my Labrador, Tank, was lying quietly at my feet like he always does, wearing his bright red vest that says, "Do not pet." Next, this screeching blonde child with gum on her shirt and gold glitter on her shoes lunged at him, fists flying and teeth bared like she thought he was a chew toy. Tank didn't even growl. He just whimpered and backed up, his eyes wide, stunned. That was when I saw it, the blood. A dark red blotch on his white fur, right near his shoulder. My hands shook as I reached down, shielding him, but the kid wasn't done. She was still reaching, yelling, "Get up, dog! Get up," like she wanted to ride him. I lost it. I stood up so fast my tray table flipped. "Where's her parent?" I shouted. "Get your kid off my dog." And that's when the woman in seat 14C slowly turned around with a sigh, like this was somehow my fault. "Oh, she's just playing," she said. "Maybe your animal shouldn't be on a plane if he can't handle kids." I stared at her. Blonde bob, chunky necklace, huge sunglasses inside the plane, and the world's most plastic smile. It hit me right then. Karen. Of course. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that this dog saved my life more times than I can count. And now she'd let her brat draw blood from him mid-flight. I didn't say a word after that. I just sat back down, pulled out my phone, and started recording. Because of this? This was going to be the last flight she ever took without consequences. And she had no idea who I was. Tank wasn't just a pet. He was a full-blooded, trained PTSD service dog, certified by the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'd gotten him after Afghanistan. The IED blast shattered more than just bones, it did something inside my head I couldn't fix on my own. Tank had been with me through flashbacks, nightmares, and even full-on meltdowns at gas stations. He knew how to lean against my chest and breathe with me when the world started spinning too fast. That dog had sat with me during 3 breakdowns, 4 therapy sessions, and 1 suicide attempt. And now he was bleeding. 2 weeks earlier, everything had been quiet. Peaceful, even. I'd finally gotten my VA housing sorted and moved into a modest townhouse on a quiet suburban street in Maryland. My neighbors were friendly enough, at first. They waved. Some brought casseroles. I thought I was finally somewhere I could heal. But that changed the day a crisp, white envelope showed up in my mailbox. No stamp. Just slipped in. The header read, "Welcome to Maple Ridge Community. HOA reminders and rules." Beneath that was a list of 27 rules. Some were normal, lawn care, garbage bins. Others were something else entirely. Rule number 14. No visible American flags larger than 3 by 5 feet. Rule number 18. No pets over 50 pounds. Rule number 21. No military paraphernalia is displayed in public view. I blinked. Read it again. I had a small Marine Corps flag hanging inside my porch window. Tank was 70 pounds. I had a Bronze Star plaque outside, gifted to me by my old unit. Tank nuzzled my hand while I stared at the paper, sensing something was off. I folded it up slowly and slipped it back into the envelope. The next morning, there was a yellow notice taped to my door. Violation warning. You have 5 days to comply. That's when I started asking questions. I knocked on a few doors. A kind older man named Mr. Jenkins explained the HOA had a new president, a woman who'd moved in last year with her daughter. Her name was Karen Winters. Apparently, she took over the HOA board during a re-election meeting nobody really attended. And ever since, she'd been rewriting the rules, and enforcing them with the energy of a mall cop hopped up on espresso shots. She even fined me for planting the wrong color of tulips, he whispered like she might be listening through the trees. Is that even legal? I asked. He just gave me a sad shrug. Around here? Doesn't matter. Tank barked softly as if to say, something's not right. I kept my cool. I complied with the flag rule. Took it down. Moved the plaque inside. But I filed a petition for Tank under the ADA. He wasn't a pet. He was a service animal. Federal law should have protected him. I sent in the paperwork, receipts, and even his official certification badge. 3 days later, I received an email from the HOA board, or more specifically, from Karen Winters herself. It read, "Thank you for your submission. Unfortunately, the HOA does not recognize service animals as exempt from our pet policy. We appreciate your cooperation and look forward to your full compliance." My jaw dropped. That was illegal. Flat out. I replied, quoting the Americans with Disabilities Act. No response. The next morning? Another notice. $500 fine. And still, I kept quiet. I told myself maybe this was just some misunderstanding. I wasn't here to start wars. I'd already been through one. But then Tank got sick. He stopped eating. Started vomiting. The vet found traces of antifreeze. We barely caught it in time. Someone had tampered with his water bowl, which I kept outside on the porch for him during walks. That's when something snapped inside me. I installed a Ring camera. Reinforced the porch. Started documenting every single letter, notice, and fine. I even contacted a friend from the VA who worked on housing discrimination cases. And then the invitation came. A veterans conference in Austin, fully funded. They were honoring a few of us with advocacy awards. They even offered to fly Tank with me. It was supposed to be the highlight of my year. Instead, it became the breaking point. And of course, Karen and her kid just happened to be on the same flight. I didn't see them at first. Tank and I boarded early, disability pre-boarding. He curled up at my feet, wearing his vest, his tags, and his little red boots for the airport floor. He was calm. Happy, even. The flight crew complimented him. Then, right before takeoff, I heard a child scream, "A doggy!" My stomach dropped. I turned. There she was. Mini Karen. Blonde curls, tablet in hand, pink Crocs, and that look in her eye that told me she didn't care about the word no. And behind her, Karen Winters. "Oh," she said, scanning me like I was a checkout item. "You live on Maple Ridge Lane, don't you?" Small world. Yeah. Small, cruel world. They took the seats directly behind me. I knew. Right then. Something was going to go wrong. And it did. 10 minutes into the flight, her kid leaned over and started poking Tank. He lifted his head, unsure. I turned and said gently, "Please don't touch him. He's working." Karen rolled her eyes. "She's just excited. He's cute." I repeated myself. Firmer this time. "He's a medical service dog. Please ask your daughter to stop." Karen pulled out a magazine and said, "If your dog can't handle kids, maybe you shouldn't bring him in public." I tried to ignore it. I shouldn't have. Because 30 minutes later, mid-flight, seatbelt light on, I heard the unfastening of a buckle. Then a pair of tiny feet stomping forward. Before I could stop her, Karen's kid was on Tank. Grabbing. Pulling. Biting. And all I could do was shield him with my body, yelling for help while Karen shouted behind me, "She's just playing." The plane cabin was chaos. Tank whimpered again, curled against the wall. A flight attendant finally intervened, pulling the child back and scolding her, gently. Too gently. Karen threw a fit. Claimed I was overreacting. called Tank a dangerous animal. But the bleeding was real. And so was the rage boiling in my chest. I looked at the blood on my hands. And then I looked at Karen. And I smiled. Because what she didn't know was that I wasn't just a quiet veteran with a dog. I knew exactly how to hit her where it hurt. And I already had a plan. The plane landed in Austin, but the moment my feet hit the ground, I wasn't thinking about the award I was supposed to receive or the speech I'd been rehearsing in my head for 2 weeks straight. I wasn't thinking about the old army buddy I was supposed to meet up with or even the warm Texas air that usually helped ease the tightness in my chest. I was thinking about Tank. We were rushed straight from the airport to the emergency vet clinic. Tank's shoulder had a deep bite mark, not too large, but it had broken the skin and required stitches. They gave him antibiotics and pain medication. The vet looked at me and said, "He'll be okay. But he's stressed. He needs rest. No more surprises." I nodded and rubbed his ear, trying to keep my voice steady. "No more surprises, buddy." I took a cab from the clinic to the hotel. Tank was groggy from the sedative, tucked against me in the back seat. The driver kept glancing at the blood-stained towel I was holding against his shoulder, but he didn't say a word. He just turned the radio down low and drove carefully, like he knew what quiet meant to people like me. At the hotel, the staff greeted me like royalty. They'd seen the conference posters. I was one of the featured speakers, a former staff sergeant, now a housing advocate. I was supposed to talk about community reintegration and the importance of accessibility. The irony wasn't lost on me. I smiled, signed in, and asked for a quiet room far from the elevator. They handed me my badge and a stack of brochures. As I walked away from the front desk, I passed the open doors of the lounge. And there she was. Karen. Sitting at the bar. Laughing. Sipping a glass of white wine like she didn't just traumatize a disabled veteran's service animal. My hand clenched around the badge. I walked straight past her without a word. But I saw her eyes flick toward me, and her smirk widened. She wasn't even worried. She thought she'd won. She thought this was over. But I'd already made the call. My friend Eric, a housing lawyer who worked with veterans and had dealt with HOA nightmares like hers before, was already drafting a formal complaint. I'd sent him the video from the plane. I'd also CC'd the airline and the Department of Transportation. Service animal interference was no small thing, especially in flight. And I wasn't done. I woke up the next morning early, before the sun. Tank was still drowsy, curled up on the blanket I'd laid out on the floor beside the bed. His stitches looked clean, and he licked my hand softly when I knelt to check on him. "Just a few more days," I whispered. "Then we go home." The speech went better than I expected. I stood in front of a packed hall and talked about coming back from war, about what home was supposed to mean, and about how peace doesn't come easy, especially when the very neighborhoods we try to settle in to become another kind of battlefield. People clapped. A few even cried. I didn't mention Karen. Not by name. But I did say this: no community is truly whole if it pushes away the people who need it most. Especially those who've already given more than their share. When I walked off stage, I had 6 new contacts. 3 reporters. 2 veterans housing nonprofits. 1 congressional aide. All of them are angry. All of them are ready to help. But what came next, I didn't expect. Back at the hotel, while Tank napped under the desk, I received a text from an unknown number. "Better be careful who you mess with. People talk." I stared at it for a long minute. Then another one came. "You're not the only one who knows people." I showed it to the front desk. The manager got security involved. They pulled the guest logs and found Karen had requested a room on my floor, 3 doors down. Suddenly it made sense. The smirk. The casual laughter. The way she kept showing up like it was all coincidence. She was trying to rattle me. But rattling me was a mistake. That night, I met up with my old friend Jaden, former Army Signals, now a cybersecurity specialist. We sat down in a downtown cafe, sipping strong coffee and talking through what I'd collected so far. The ring footage. The HOA violations. The fake fines. The threats. Jaden raised an eyebrow. You want receipts? I can get you receipts. I nodded. I want her buried in paper. Consider it done. What Karen didn't know was that Jaden had once cracked a fraud ring inside a state contractor's office using nothing but a burner phone and a LinkedIn profile. She wouldn't see him coming. We agreed on 3 things. 1. Find out if Karen had violated any federal accessibility laws. 2. Dig into her HOA presidency and whether she was even elected properly. 3. Look for any patterns, former neighbors, online reviews, anything that could show a trail. I spent the next day flying under the radar. Tank rested while I did interviews, took photos with attendees, and quietly shared what had happened on the flight. The story spread fast, word of mouth, then whispers, then full-on murmurs in the lobby. The conference director pulled me aside. We want to issue a formal statement. What she did wasn't just disgusting, it was criminal. I agreed but asked them to hold off. Let her think she got away with it. Let her feel safe. Because payback? It's best served when they don't see it coming. 2 days later, I flew back to Maryland with Tank sleeping peacefully beside me. A different airline. First class this time, courtesy of the nonprofit that heard about what happened. No Karen on this flight. But as we drove back into my neighborhood, I felt it. The shift. 2 new violation notices were taped to my door. One for non-conforming mailbox paint. The other was for overgrown shrubbery, which was ironic, considering I didn't even have a bush in my yard. This was full-blown harassment now. I looked at Tank, who let out a soft huff as if to say, again? I didn't touch the notices. Instead, I called Jaden. Got something for you, he said. You're going to want to sit down. I didn't sit. I just listened. Turns out, Karen Winters wasn't even the legal HOA president. She had falsified voting records and locked out the other board members from the internal system. The original president had moved away for 6 months due to illness, and Karen took over during that window, with no authorization. Even better? She'd been fined, twice, in her previous neighborhood for abuse of power, including discrimination against another veteran family with a service animal. It was a pattern. I leaned against my porch rail and smiled. Send me everything, I said. I already did, Jaden replied. And one more thing. I looked up just in time to see a shiny black SUV slow roll past my house. And there she was. Karen. In the passenger seat. Her daughter in the back, still glued to her iPad. Karen didn't wave. She just stared. But I waved. Big, cheerful, full-teeth grin. Because while she was riding around playing Queen of the Street, she didn't realize that every step she took now was a legal landmine. And the first one? Was about to explode. The cease and desist letter landed on her doorstep before breakfast. Delivered via courier. Signature required. Karen Winters didn't even hesitate when she saw the envelope. She scribbled her name with a dramatic flourish and tore it open right on the spot. Her lips moved as she read the first few lines, then her eyes narrowed. Her fingers clenched around the paper. And just like that, the smile dropped from her face. She had been officially served. Violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Harassment of a disabled veteran. Negligent supervision of a minor during an in-flight incident involving a certified service animal. Multiple complaints were filed with the Department of Transportation. A formal inquiry was launched by the Maryland HOA Ethics Committee. All backed by evidence. All with her name on it. By the time I looked out my living room window, she was standing on her porch in her robe, phone to her ear, pacing like she was trying to call someone who could make this go away. But no one could. Jaden had gone deeper. Not just the fake election and past fines, He had screenshots of her HOA group messages. She bragged about making an example of me. She called Tank a neighborhood hazard. She mocked my PTSD in a text chain to her little circle of self-proclaimed suburban warriors. One of her own board members had leaked it to us anonymously. That same board member? She called me. "I'm done being silent," she said. She made us lie about the vote. She threatened to fine me for having a welcome mat with a sunflower on it. I thought she was just strict, but she's vindictive. We arranged a meeting. Quietly. At a nearby coffee shop off Route 40. She was a middle-aged woman named Donna. 2 grown kids. Worked in accounting. She came with a binder of emails, meeting minutes, and a copy of the real HOA bylaws. "Your dog," she said, flipping open a folder. She knew he was registered. She had the paperwork. She just didn't care. She said she wanted military types to know this wasn't a flag-waving neighborhood. My jaw tightened. "Are you sure you're ready to go public with this?" She nodded. "I should have done it months ago." We coordinated. She'd testify. Others would come forward. Jaden packaged the entire timeline into a clean, bulletproof file, digital and hard copy, and handed it off to the attorney handling the housing discrimination claim. The next step? Taking it to the HOA Oversight Board and the media. We were ready. But Karen wasn't going down without a tantrum. That afternoon, while Tank and I were out back on our short walk, a white minivan pulled up near my property. I didn't think much of it, not until I saw Karen's kid hop out, unsupervised, and walk up to my porch. In her hand? A crumpled note. She slid it under my front door, turned around, and ran back to the van. It sped off before I could stop her. I picked up the paper. It read, "Dogs don't belong here. Accidents happen. You've been warned." No name. No signature. Just jagged handwriting in purple marker. That was the moment I finally stopped hoping Karen would dig her own hole. I was going to help her dig it. I contacted a local investigative reporter named Elise Thomas, someone Jaden had worked with before. She specialized in HOA abuse stories, and she had a large following online. I sent her the video footage, the timeline, the photos of Tank's injury, the note, and a copy of the legal complaint. She replied within 30 minutes. "Let's talk. I want to run this." We met at her office the next morning. She took notes furiously, asked sharp questions, and reviewed everything like a trial lawyer preparing for court. "What's your goal here?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. Awareness. Accountability. And making sure no one else has to go through what I did. She nodded. Good. Because this story is going viral. By the time the article went live, it had everything: the HOA corruption, the service dog attack, the airline incident, even Donna's anonymous interview. It didn't name Karen directly at first, just referred to her as the acting HOA president. But it linked to public documents that anyone could trace. It spread fast. Facebook, Reddit, and local news sites. Then the comments came. People who lived in my neighborhood. People who used to live in my neighborhood. People who dealt with HOAs across the country and had stories of their own. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me. It was about something bigger. I thought that might be the end of it. But I was wrong. Because that night, just after 11 p.m., I heard a loud bang. Tank shot up, growling. I grabbed a flashlight and ran to the front door. And there, on my porch, was a shattered glass jar, its contents spilled across the welcome mat. Raw meat. Laced with blue pellets. Rat poison. I froze. Tank barked so loud it echoed through the cul-de-sac. I scooped him up and pulled him inside. My hands shook as I called the police. The dispatcher's voice was calm but firm. Do not touch anything else. We're sending a unit now. 10 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. They took photos, bagged the meat, reviewed the ring footage. And yes, the camera caught it. A hooded figure, tall, moving fast. Hard to see their face. But the car they came out of? Same white minivan from earlier. The plate was visible. Karen's plate. The officer looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow. And keep your dog inside. I nodded, but I couldn't breathe right. Someone had just tried to kill my service animal. And now? It wasn't just about fines or letters or fake threats. This was war. And I knew exactly how to fight back. The next morning, my hands were still trembling when I buckled Tank into the back seat and drove straight to the police station. He sat upright beside me, alert but silent, watching everything through the window like he knew something serious was going down. The moment I walked into the station, Officer Daniels, the one who took the report the night before, greeted me with a firm nod. We ran the plates, he said without wasting time. Registered to a Karen Winters. We're assigning a detective to the case. Detective Pierce was mid-40s, no-nonsense, buzz-cut, and tired-eyed. He walked into the interview room holding a manila folder thick with printed screenshots. I recognized some of them immediately. Jaden had done his work well. Walk me through everything, Pierce said. So I did. From the fake fines to the threats to the plane to the poisoned meat. He took notes, pausing only when I mentioned the HOA violations. You got footage of her daughter attacking the dog? I nodded. On the plane. I uploaded it to the cloud. I can send it to you. Pierce leaned back in his chair. That helps. A lot. But the meat? That's a whole different ballgame. We're sending it to the lab to confirm it's poisoned. If it is, we're looking at a felony. That word, felony, rang in my ears long after I left the station. I dropped Tank off at the vet for a checkup just to be safe, then headed back to Maple Ridge. The moment I pulled into the driveway, I saw them, 3 more notices taped to my garage door. One for disorderly conduct, another for disruptive lawn maintenance, and the third? Failure to comply with neighborhood decorum. That wasn't even a real infraction. This was her way of letting me know she was still swinging. But this time, I didn't rip the notices down. I didn't throw them away. I photographed them. Uploaded them. Dated them. I was collecting everything now. And I had allies, people I never expected. Donna texted me later that day. You're not alone. There are others. She wasn't lying. Over the next 2 days, 3 more neighbors came forward, one of them a single mom named Linda who had been fined $200 for having a basketball hoop in her driveway longer than 12 hours. Another, a retired black couple, was charged with a noise violation because their grandkids laughed too loudly during a birthday party. She calls the HOA rules tools of order, Linda said bitterly. But really, it's just power. She uses it to target whoever doesn't bow to her. We met at my house that evening. 6 of us. I made coffee. Tank laid at our feet, watching every person who entered like a gentle guard. I told them everything. The kid on the plane. The blood. The meat. The letters. And then I showed them the video. You could hear a pin drop. By the time it ended, Linda was wiping tears from her cheeks. She could have killed him, she whispered. And she's still walking around like she runs this place. One of the neighbors, a quiet man named Brian, finally spoke up. We should hold a vote. The HOA charter allows for an emergency meeting. If enough homeowners request it, we can demand a leadership review. Donna nodded. And this time, we'll all show up. I grinned. Let's do it. Within 48 hours, we had over 2/3 of the neighborhood signed onto the petition. It wasn't easy, some were afraid of retaliation. Others had been burned by Karen before and didn't trust anyone. But the story had gone viral. More and more people started asking questions. And then, came the knock at my door. It was Detective Pierce. He stood there, silent for a second, holding a small evidence bag. Inside? A wad of blue-tinted meat. It tested positive, he said. Confirmed rodenticide. You were right. I exhaled slowly. He continued. We're filing a warrant for her house. The DA's reviewing the case now. If they find matching substance inside her property, it's over. He left shortly after, but not before warning me to keep Tank indoors and stay alert. You've rattled her. People like this? They lash out before they fall. He wasn't wrong. That night, around 2 a.m., I heard a noise outside. A scraping sound. Like something being dragged across the pavement. I grabbed the flashlight and quietly peeked through the blinds. And what I saw nearly stopped my heart. Someone had dumped a pile of dead rats on my driveway. 6 of them. Lined up. Deliberately. A message. I didn't open the door. I didn't touch a thing. I just called the police. When they arrived, they cordoned off the area, took photos, and bagged the evidence. One of the officers turned to me with a disturbed look on her face. This is escalating fast. I nodded. She's cornered. She's trying to scare me. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was prepared. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Saturday, 3 days away. Word had spread. People from the next neighborhood were even planning to attend. Reporters. Lawyers. HOA watchdog groups. Elise from the local news confirmed she'd be there to record the vote. Everything was building up. But Karen wasn't done. Because the next morning? She disappeared. And her daughter? Was left behind. Alone. On my doorstep. Holding a note that made my blood run cold. She stood there barefoot, in her pajamas, holding a wrinkled note in both hands. Her blonde curls were a mess, tangled and wild. Her face was blotchy from crying. And for the first time since I'd seen her, on that awful flight, screaming and biting and clawing at my dog, she looked small. Scared. Where's your mom? I asked. She didn't answer. She just held out the note like it weighed more than she could carry. I took it from her carefully, trying not to scare her off. The handwriting was Karen's. I need to leave town. I can't handle this. She doesn't have anyone else right now. She's your problem. Figure it out. I blinked. Read it again. She dumped her own kid on my doorstep. Tank stepped beside me, ears perked, sensing the tension. He looked up at the little girl and let out a soft huff, not a growl, not a bark. Just a breath. She stepped back, clutching the edge of her pajama top. I didn't know she was going to hurt your dog, she mumbled. I crouched down, leveling my voice. What's your name? She sniffled. Savannah. Savannah, I repeated. Are you hungry? She nodded, lip trembling. Come inside. We'll figure this out. I made her scrambled eggs and toast. She didn't talk much, just picked at the plate and kept glancing at Tank. He lay on his bed across the room, watching her like a silent sentry. She flinched every time he moved. Are you scared of dogs? I asked gently. No, she said. Just him. Why? She didn't look at me. Just stared down at her eggs. Mama said he was bad. That he was trained to hurt people who didn't listen. I swallowed hard. That's not true. He's trained to help people who are hurting. She went quiet again. A long pause. Then a whisper. Is Mama in trouble? I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I called Child Protective Services. Explained the situation. They sent a caseworker within the hour. I stayed with Savannah the whole time, Tank lying calmly beside us, showing her there was nothing to fear. When the caseworker arrived, she looked stunned by the note. She'd dealt with some wild situations before, she said, but this? This was next level. Her mom dumped her here? The woman asked, eyes wide. She just left, I said. Didn't even knock. Just left. They filed the emergency report, took Savannah into temporary care, and promised to keep me updated. As the car pulled away, Savannah looked out the window and gave me the smallest wave. Tank barked once, soft and short. The house felt too quiet after that. But there was no time to dwell on it, not with the emergency HOA meeting only one day away. The neighborhood was buzzing. People I'd never spoken to stopped me on the street, asking what time it started. Donna had printed flyers. Brian had rented folding chairs. The local news confirmed they'd be there with cameras. Karen's disappearance only made things worse for her. The narrative had shifted. The woman who'd once ruled the community like a tyrant was now seen as unstable, dangerous, and reckless. And just when I thought the worst was behind me, I got a knock at the door. Not the soft knock of a neighbor. Not the friendly tap of a friend. This one was different. Louder. Urgent. I opened it slowly, and froze. 2 uniformed officers stood there, stern-faced. One held a clipboard. Are you Mr. Logan Reeves? The taller one asked. Yes. We're here to execute a search warrant, he said. We received an anonymous tip suggesting you're harboring dangerous animals and have weapons stored illegally on the premises. My jaw dropped. What? We need to inspect the property. Now. I stepped aside, hands raised, confused and furious. Tank stood behind me, alert but silent. The officers moved through the house. They checked the kitchen, the closets, the garage. 10 minutes in, the shorter officer returned, holding a bag from the trash. This was in your bin? He asked. I glanced at it and nearly gagged. Raw meat. Again. But this time? With my name on the plastic wrap. What the hell? I stepped back. You didn't put this there? The tall one asked. No. Of course not. He frowned. Then someone's trying to frame you. I knew exactly who. Karen had vanished, but her war wasn't over. She was playing her last card. Smear me. Paint me as unstable. Flip the story. But it was too late for her. Because she didn't realize I'd installed a second camera. One hid in the bird feeder above my mailbox. Motion activated. High resolution. And the night before? It caught everything. A shadowed figure in a hoodie. A plastic-wrapped package. The same white minivan. I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and showed the officers. The tall one watched the screen, then nodded slowly. Send us that footage. Right now. I did. He turned to his partner. Let's wrap this up. He's not our guy. They left shortly after, apologizing for the disruption. As the door shut behind them, I sat down hard on the couch, Tank resting his head on my knee. She's desperate, I whispered. And desperate people make mistakes. I looked down at my dog, his brown eyes watching me. She's running out of time. The emergency meeting was less than 24 hours away. And the community was ready to vote. But what I didn't know was that Karen wasn't just hiding. She was planning something. Something big. And it was coming straight for me. The sky was the color of smoke that Saturday morning. Heavy clouds rolled in, casting a strange, muted light over Maple Ridge, like the whole street was holding its breath. The folding chairs were lined up on the cul-de-sac, right where the HOA bylaws allowed for outdoor emergency meetings. Reporters set up their cameras, microphones clipped to their jackets. Neighbors poured out of their homes, talking in hushed, nervous tones. Everyone was here. Except Karen. Donna stood at the front, papers in hand, her voice steady as she called the meeting to order. Today we review the current HOA leadership under emergency grounds. By neighborhood code, this meeting is valid with over 2/3 attendance. She paused to glance at the attendance sheet, which we have. Applause broke out. Not polite. Not quiet. It was the sound of people breaking free. Then came the testimonies. One by one, neighbors stood and spoke about fines, threats, forged signatures, harassing notes, and unfair treatment. The retired couple with the grandkids. Linda with the basketball hoop. Even Brian, who'd kept quiet for months, stood tall and told the story of how Karen had threatened to report him to child services for hosting his niece's sleepover. And then they called me. I stepped up to the front, Tank by my side. He wore his vest proudly, stitched, clean, healed. But the scar on his shoulder was still there. I didn't come here looking for trouble, I said into the mic. I came here because I thought this could be home. Because I wanted peace. What I got instead was harassment, cruelty, and an attack on the one thing that's kept me alive through everything I've been through. The crowd was dead silent. This isn't just about HOA rules, I continued. It's about decency. It's about protecting the vulnerable, not punishing them. And it's about finally saying, enough is enough. More applause. Louder this time. Donna stepped forward and held up the vote form. We now vote on the immediate removal of Karen Winters from her position as HOA president, effective today. All in favor. A wave of hands shot up. 86%. She's out, Donna announced. Effective immediately. And a new election will be held in 2 weeks. Cheers erupted. For a moment, it felt like we had finally won. Like the worst was behind us. But then, the scream. It came from the edge of the cul-de-sac. High-pitched. Panicked. Everyone turned. And there she was. Karen Winters. She stood next to her white minivan, face twisted, hair wild, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hands were shaking. She was holding a phone in one and something small and black in the other. I couldn't make it out right away. You think you can take everything from me? She shrieked. 2 police cruisers had been parked down the street, just in case. The moment she screamed, they were already on the move. I gave this neighborhood order. Karen shouted, backing away as the officers approached. You people were animals before me. I fixed you. Tank growled low beside me, sensing the tension. But I held his leash tight. One of the officers, a woman named Torres, stepped forward. Karen, you need to put down whatever's in your hand. Karen held it higher. It was a remote. A garage door remote. She laughed, a wild, unhinged sound, and clicked the button. Then came the boom. Not a big one. Not fire. Not glass. But a loud, echoing crash came from the direction of my house. My heart leapt into my throat. I ran. Tank bounded beside me. A crowd followed. And what we found? My garage door had been rigged to collapse inward, not with explosives, but with weights. Sandbags. Heavy chains. A crude setup, designed to smash everything beneath it. Tank's crate had been inside. If he'd been in there. I dropped to my knees, breath shaking. But he was safe. With me. I turned just in time to see Karen being tackled and cuffed by Officer Torres. She was still yelling, spewing nonsense, about conspiracies, how we were all against her, how veterans shouldn't get special treatment, and how I had brainwashed the neighborhood. They dragged her into the cruiser. People clapped as the door shut. Donna came up behind me and whispered, "She's going to jail, Logan." For a long time. Elise from the news was already narrating the whole thing live on camera. Today in Maple Ridge, justice was served. What began as a quiet community-turned-war zone is finally finding peace again, thanks to one man, one dog, and the truth. The next week felt like the dust settling after a hurricane. Karen was officially charged with animal endangerment, harassment, falsifying HOA documents, and tampering with personal property. CPS placed Savannah with her aunt out in Ohio. They sent me a thank you card, signed in crayon, with one sentence, "Tank is my hero." And he was. I kept the card on the fridge. The HOA elected Donna as president. First order of business? Rewriting the entire rulebook. Fairly. Transparently. With community input. And me? I stayed. Because for the first time in years, this place finally felt like home. Sometimes war follows you even after the battlefield. But sometimes, you win. And the world remembers the soldier and the dog who didn't back down. Not even from Karen. She thought she could walk away without consequences, but now, the entire internet knows what she did. If you believe in justice, kindness, and standing up for those who can't speak, hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable stories, and drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? See you in the next one.